Welcome back to Sweet Science Boxing and MMA here in Hawthorne, California. I'm Chris, your boxing enthusiast, and with me, as always, is professional boxing coach and insider, my very good friend and your host, Coach Marco Trejo.
What's up, guys? What's up, fans? What's going on?
What's going on?
What's up?
And, of course, on my right today, another coach. We got two coaches up here today. Do you go by coach?
I do. People just call me the coach. But I'm not the coach up here anymore. The coach is on my left. I'm just Coach Jerry.
Referring to strength and conditioning coach for Titan Edge Athletics, Jerry Arias. Welcome to Beat the Count.
Thank you guys, man. I appreciate the opportunity coming down. Love the show. You guys have tremendous guests on talking real boxing. And the moment that I even had the opportunity to come on down, I was really pumped up. I love speaking to people that are involved with the sport. It not only allows me to teach, but it allows me to learn from you guys because you guys have a lot more experience than I do. I have my specialty, but the only way I can get better is to learn by other coaches who are far more experienced than I am. So this is extremely a great opportunity for me as my development as a coach.
Definitely. Thanks for being on. Yeah. Actually, we met in the locker room in Ontario, California. Yeah. You were there with Ruben Torres and Michael Dutchover, right?
Yeah, we were at the Thompson show, and Chris came over and he wanted me to hold the camera, and I was like, wait,
this was your cameraman.
I was like, wait a minute, how much am I getting paid for this? And he gave me a gift card, but it's all right. I definitely met you in the back room while you're doing the interview with Ruben and Mike.
This was my my first press credential was for a Thompson boxing show, and I had thought of everything except for who was going to hold the camera. So I brought the microphone, I did the whole thing. So for the first one, Ruben actually had his dad hold the camera.
Oh, man. Good job, Chris.
Ruben had his dad hold the camera. And then for the second one, Coach Jerry was gracious enough to, with some handy camera work, to record the interviews that you guys have seen on the Beat the Count channel. So thanks for that.
You're welcome, man. My pleasure.
That was a great job, by the way.
It was very steady hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Very steady hands. They're the hands of a strength and conditioning coach. But, you mentioned in the opening there, learning from other coaches and growing your experience and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about, in order to become a strength and conditioning coach, what are the steps that you had to take? Is there specific educational requirements? Did you have to mentor, or how did you get into this space?
So like the process of becoming a strength and conditioning coach, there's no real title per se. You don't have to have a license, which is kind of, in my opinion, kind of the bad part. If you're become a trainer, whatever that means, you can call yourself a strength and conditioning coach. But for me, I had some amazing mentors growing up. So I went to Cal State Fullerton, got my bachelor's and master's degree, both in exercise science. But I quickly learned that just knowing the science is extremely beneficial. However, you need the experience. You need to learn from other people who may not know the education part, but they have a lot more experience. And to me, especially in a sport like boxing, that is more important than just the science by itself. So to me, I knew once I got out of college, my first thing was to just kind of submerge myself with other coaches, people who have been training, and just to kind of be a fly on the wall. One of my big things is I'm bringing a small piece of the puzzle, and the only way I can get better as a coach is to learn from others who have been doing it for years and years and years, because it's an evolving sport. It's evolving. The science is constantly changing, and even though I'm reading tons of papers on an everyday basis, I need to be in the gym. And when my guys are sparring, I'm in there side by side with their boxing coach, and I'm like, hey, what do you see? What could I do better in the gym to improve that aspect of their footwork, their speed, their power, whatever? And I've been gracious enough to have amazing coaches who are open to that, and they actually want to communicate with me rather than being closed off and just kind of, hey, do whatever you want with them, because to me it's not beneficial to the athlete.
Is that coaches then in like different sports? Because you guys serve athletes from all different types of sports. Is it different exercises, conditioning techniques, and things like that? And are you having to learn from many different coaches, not just boxing coaches? Or?
Yeah, I think that's one of the main misconceptions, is just because they're an athlete that they should just train the same way. And again, one of the things I always like to talk about, it's like you could play the same sport. So we were with a lot of baseball athletes, and you could be on the same team. Both are pitchers. However, one guy might need to increase their velocity or gain some weight. Okay. Another person might need more mobility because he's really tight in his lower back or his mid back, and it's not allowing him to throw the ball with proper mechanics. So like there's two athletes, both pitchers. However, my job should not be to train them the same exact way.
Sure.
They should be on different programs. And that's how I can tell if a coach really knows what they're doing, if they're working through a more of an individual perspective rather than, okay, they're all boxers and they should all have cardio. Well, some might need more of a sprint type cardio program. Others might need more an aerobic type program. Now, both boxing athletes may be the same weight class. However, they should have different training programs.
So something that Coach and I have talked about on here in the past is boxing being kind of this old school sport, and where you see a lot of coaches and the way that they train is they train a certain way because this is how I was taught, and that's how my dad learned, and that's how his coach learned, and et cetera, and so forth and so on. And we have this debate about modern science, and where we say athletes today have the benefit of modern science, so they can learn additional training techniques and things like that. So, how do you jive with the boxing coach, the guy who's sort of presumably the old school? Let me show you how to do this.
Don't put me on the spot here.
No, yeah, but like how do you work with the head coach for the team?
So
without interrupting sort of what they're trying to do.
First, before I answer, I'd like to hear the coach kind of answer that question first. Like, just because I again, my answer is fairly simple. It's communication. It's all about communication and earning the trust of that coach. Because anytime I meet with a new athlete, I always require that the athlete and their coach come in at the same time and meet with me, because I don't want to sit down with an athlete and he's telling me he needs this, and then the coach finds out 2 weeks down the road I've been working on their cardio when that coach didn't want to work on that cardio. So to me, I always what I say, I know my role, and my role is a very small piece of that large puzzle, and I'm there to help the athlete / team in any way possible. So I always defer to their boxing skills coach. But again, that's where having that communication, where maybe, again, if you talk about the old school mentality, it's being able to teach them, hey, here's what we know, in the past 10 years about the science of physiology. This is what, in my opinion, might work a little bit better than maybe what they're currently doing. And, hopefully the better coaches are open to that, as long as I show that, hey, it's still their program. It's still working towards what they want. I'm just adding to it.
So you're bringing that to the coach, not to the athlete. You'll say, hey, I think maybe we should train this, and you'll go to the coach with that.
Yeah, I'm always going to go to the coach, because, again, he is the leader of the team. He's the one guy that can, if I don't do what I'm supposed to, he's going to be the one making that decision if I'm part of that team or not. So I'm always deferring to that boxing coach. And at the same time, if he thinks that what I might be doing is hurting his fighter, then I'm going to change that program. I don't have the ego where, even though I might have the degree, he has the experience. And if he tells me, Jerry, hey, you need to stop, working so much of their legs because they're coming in tired to sparring, I'm going to stop working their legs and maybe change up the exercise and maybe don't do as much, but I'm always going to steer towards what their boxing technical aspect or technical coach is telling me what they want. Yeah, always. And
Coach, what's your perspective on working with other coaches? So collaborating in terms of developing a fighter.
Well, boxing, especially a team and a coach, is very territorial, So letting somebody into your space is difficult, and a lot of coaches are apprehensive about that. But as long as there's communication, that's real important. Yeah, the coach wants to feel like he is the boss because he's put so much time in developing the fighter. And in the beginning of a boxer's career, the coach is not going to have the luxury, and I consider like a strength or performance coach a luxury. So the head coach, the boxing coach, the skills boxing coach is going to do most of that training in the beginning, So they're going to be, apprehensive to letting somebody in. So yeah, I mean, that's the best approach is you want to communicate with the boxing coach to find out what they think the deficiencies are, and if you can help. I'm all for it, coming from a background where I played, baseball and football, and there was always a strength and conditioning coach, and then your skills coach. When I started boxing, I mean, it was old school.
Yeah.
There's just the boxing coach. So for me, it's a luxury. It definitely elevates the sport, and the athlete. But as long as the strength coach or performance coach doesn't try teaching the boxer how to throw a punch, or doesn't really give them the strategy for the fight, that I think that's where people run into problems. But we always talk about the sports evolve, and that's one of the added bonuses of the evolution is having the strength and performance coach.
The evolution of athletes.
Yeah.
You mean the fact that athletes have evolved?
Yeah. The sport. No, I mean,
Coach and I have this debate too.
no. My thing is that I think the athletes were tougher. I don't think performance wise they were better. I think some of them might have been, just kind of an anomaly back then. But I feel that the mental toughness,
Sure.
was higher because they had to just endure different situations. Now, and a performance coach will make the athlete, perform better, run faster, hit harder, that type of stuff. But at the same time, I almost feel like the athlete gets a little bit catered to and kind of coddled as he's being brought up, because they have so many people around them. Where I think, like I said, my main argument is just that they were tougher back then.
I got you. So let me ask you, Coach Jerry, who is approaching you then, as it's related to boxing? Are you being approached by the head coach normally saying this athlete wants some additional strength and conditioning, or are you actually being approached by the fighters to do this?
I would say maybe 90% of the time is the fighters. So I'm getting messages via my social media and things like that. They're just like, hey, we like what you're putting out, some videos and stuff like that, and can we set up a time to meet and things like that. But I mean, there's times where I've met with the fighter and at the end of the day, it's like, hey, my coach doesn't want to make the commitment, and it fell through. So there's times where I know I can help the athlete, but they might just not be ready. Kind of like Coach is saying, maybe early on in the stages, the head coach doesn't want an outside influence on it, and it could just be the perception of maybe their past history with other strength and conditioning coaches who have had an ego and want to step in and kind of didn't know they're stay in their lane. So it's like my job is to change that perception, where it's like, hey, I understand I have to earn that trust. And part of that is not just seeing them while they're in the gym. One of the things that I like to do with all my athletes is I go to their sparring sessions. I'm right side by side with their trainer. I'm checking their heart rate. I'm educating the coach. Hey, this is why we're doing our conditioning the way we do, is because it's based off their heart rate, their recovery. So it's like part of earning, if you want to call it old school coach's trust, is like, hey, are you putting in the hours? Because I know their boxing coach, like how Coach said, they've taken them from amateur to where they're at. So many hours of work where it's like, who am I to just come in and steal the show per se, right? So it's like, I got to earn that, and I know that. I got to put in those dirty hours where nobody's going to see, right? And then at that point, hopefully they start to trust me, and then now it's like, hey, go do what you're supposed to do. This is what we're hiring you for, and I can do what I'm supposed to do, right? But it's constantly communicating, hey, this is what I'm saying. Some guys might come in and they're pretty beat up. Instead of training today, you're going to put on our recovery boots, and that's your training session. Now, the coach might get a little angry, like, hey, why didn't he work out? Well, he came in, and his posture was really bad. He didn't get good sleep. In my opinion, I thought it might have been best to pull back, because tomorrow he's sparring with Triple G, or he's sparring with these big names. That's more important than our strength and conditioning session, right?
So knowing when to not to quit, but knowing when to not overexert yourself is a big part of strength and conditioning.
I think my number one role is to keep the athlete healthy, and that includes recovery, because I always go back, is they're boxers. They're not weightlifters. They're not bodybuilders. And if I do something in our session, let's just say I get them super sore on their hamstrings and their glutes, lower back, and they go into their sparring session and they look like crap, their boxing coach, I'm taking away some of that trust I've earned with them, because it's like, hey, this is more important than your session. So that's where it's like, I need to know when I need to pull back. And at the same time, if I tell them, hey, we're not going to train hard today, mentally it might be a little defeating, kind of like Coach was saying. I'm taking away a little bit of that mental toughness. So I might not even tell them that I'm changing their workout for that given day, but I am. I'm strapping on their heart rate monitor. I'm seeing where their numbers are at, and I'm not even going to tell them, but I'm pulling back the intensity on that session. They're still going to sweat. They're going to work hard, but it's not going to be the session that I had planned based on how they're coming in. So sometimes I don't want to tell the athlete, hey, we're going to take it easy, because kind of like Coach is saying, it's like, no, like I have a fight in 3 weeks. I don't want to take it easy. So I might not even say that, but essentially I'm pulling back a little bit.
Well, here's where I think that could be advantageous as far as having, a strength or performance coach in the team, is overtraining happens a lot, and especially with just the skills coach or a traditional boxing coach. We want to train hard all the time. Yeah. But if if you're not having the recovery aspect, if you're not thinking about the recovery aspect, then you can have an injury leading up to the to fight, or just a nagging muscle injury leading up to the fight. That's where it's very important to have a professional that's educated in exercise and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, to me it's a luxury. I'd love to have it for all of the fighters. I think one of the reasons that the boxers cannot have it until a certain point is the money aspect too. And then these fighters got to prove themselves. You know, they've, from the amateurs to the pros, you know, whether you have 10 fights or 20 fights, you know, you can't be like, you know, 5 and 10 and be like, I need a strength coach. You're like, well, at that point, you know, nobody's really investing in you, you know, and you've got to reach a certain level to get that quality strength coach. So
when it comes, you mentioned being involved in their health, or that being your primary concern overall is their health. Does that extend to things like a fighter's nutrition and other sort of luxury areas where maybe the main skills coach or traditional coach isn't really that involved?
Yeah, so I think that's very individual, meaning I would love to be involved with every athlete I work with, nutrition, supplement, weight cut, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's up to their head coach. If I've worked with some fighters where their diet, in my opinion, wasn't the best, the ideal. They were under fueling, under eating. But again, I know my role. If I try to step in and let's just say they were to lose the fight, they might contribute. The small changes that I made, it could have been adding a protein shake, which is more about recovery. And if they lose that fight, it's like, it's because of that protein shake. So then I just lost all that credibility. So it comes down to, hey, I'm going to do what I was hired to do. And then as I earn that trust, it's like, hey, can we sit down and talk a little bit more about nutrition? Because, again, going forward, I'm going to be doing like a myth-busting type YouTube series where it's just, there's a lot of things out there that we know from the past 10 years of research, they're just not true anymore. And if I can get that information, hopefully the fighters are understanding there's better ways to do things. Yeah.
What's an example of something that I'm just curious.
I already know one.
Curious. You do?
Yeah.
Which one?
Well, no sex before a fight. That's like the big one. I don't know.
That's fake. Is that fake, Coach?
I don't know.
I would think that would be tough to test. I think that's more anecdotal and individual, right? Because if you think about it, if a fighter's it comes
number one
to those distractions, right? If you're distracted by whatever it is, it might be taking your mindset away from the fight. But
that's more the mental sort of psychological. Okay.
But I would say they're almost, a lot of them are the same. They're just under eating because as boxers, and I've worked with some MMA athletes in the past where like an MMA athlete, they want to build, they want to get stronger, they want to, if they go up 2 or 3 pounds, it's not a big deal to them. They're like, all right, we're adding muscle, they're going to be, if it's muscle on their legs and they're they're a ground type of fighter, then it could be advantageous. But a boxer, if they go up a half a pound, they freak out. So that means they freak out, even if it's just a little bit of water that they drank, they freak out, and then they start cutting all these carbohydrates. They start cutting, and then they become very, what we call catabolic, where they're beating themselves up and kind of going along what Coach was saying. They start getting to that overtraining, and once you get overtrained, good luck getting out of there, because it is tough to. There's what we call overreaching, which is kind of like a planned where we're pushing hard, and then we're going to hit a certain part and we're going to peak. Once you get into overtraining, now you're messing with your hormones, your immunity. Things just start to shut down. That's exactly where people get injured. Is at some point you're just going to start getting my lower back. My hips are always tight. Everything starts to spiral, and then it affects your performance. But honestly, a lot of the mistakes is just under fueling, and they're scared of that scale.
And in the past, the coach is going to do this based on experience as far as how he's training the guy and trying to get him to his peak. That's all just on experience and then watching the fighter very closely. Yeah. So I definitely have to give credit to the old school coaches who didn't have a strength trainer with them.
Let me tell you something. So when I started training again, which was like towards the end of last year when I came back here initially, so I lost 25 pounds. I lost the weight, I lost a ton of weight, right? And at first when I started coming back, I was sparring 4 rounds, no problem. 25 pounds later, I'm much lighter. I feel fit and everything. I go in, I can barely do 1 round, right? I ended up having to go to the doctor because I didn't know what was going on. And he was like, well, what have you been doing? I've been exercising. I said, what about your diet? And I said, I've been dieting. So what does that mean? I basically had taken everything that I eat and I cut it in half.
Yeah.
And he was like, you can't do that. You know, like he was like, you lost this weight way too quick. Like you should be eating the equivalent of 6 chicken breasts a day. Like and I was like, I don't even know how you accomplish that.
Yeah.
Like
well, you gotta have the right. You gotta have the right fuel.
It just goes to show, like not fueling properly is a big deal apparently.
Yeah. Well, I got a question. How destructive can like cutting weight, because that's a huge part of boxing, of any combat sport. How destructive can cutting weight, cutting too much weight be to the overall benefits and gains that you made training the fighter? Now you have to drop 10 pounds or however much weight, to make the weight for the fight. Can it be very destructive, or like do you see that you have to manage that at a certain level?
Yeah, so that's a great point. The thing, again, a lot of times, especially with boxing athletes, right? You got to be careful, and I'm always careful the way I train these guys. Is like we do a little bit of weights, but a lot of it's just more the speed, the power, the conditioning aspect. Because to me, it's like, all right, if I spend 8 weeks of camp and trying to build them up, so we're building their muscles, and it doesn't mean they're getting huge, it just means they're getting stronger. But then we spend 8 weeks doing that, yet the last week they're going to cut, and they're basically taking away all that given strength, all that given muscle. What's the point? We just kind of wasted a lot of our time. So I think you have to factor that in. And that's another thing when I meet with the team, it's fun. It's wondering, all right, where are they starting at? What's their fighting weight? And we got to have dates. We have deadline by this week of the training camp. We got to get to this weight this week, and so on and so on. So it's making sure we're caught up. We're not lagging behind. But you're spot on. And the weight cut, it can be brutal. It could be one of those things where if I don't do my job and I put on 2 or 3 pounds of muscle, I'm taking away that guy not making weight, and he's probably not making a paycheck. So it's like I take my job extremely serious, because everything that I do with these guys could affect their ability to make a living. So it's like, so you got to be careful with how much weight training you do. But at the same time, it's like boxers do so much cardio that it's, unless you have just amazing genetics, where it's pretty tough to put on muscle on these guys. Some guys will, because they're genetic freaks, but they're doing so much cardio and under eating. It's literally the opposite of what muscle building is, right? So it can happen if you don't program correctly, but it's something, as long as they're doing what they're supposed to do with their nutrition, with their hydration, with their training, then they've been okay so far, the guys that I've worked with. But that's something, you have to factor in, is you spend all these weeks building them up, but then the last week they're going to take all that and they're going to lose most of their strength, their muscle. It's like, what's the point of that training camp?
Do you try to get them within a certain limit, or certain, like within 5 pounds of the weight that they have to make, so that they just have to lose water at that point?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the athlete. Some guys will drop weight faster than others. So that's where it's like, when I meet with the team, I'm like, hey, I have a strategy with my weight cut strategy, but it doesn't mean it's 100%. Some guys just don't respond really well to me, I don't cut their water up until 2 days before they win. Some guys, before they start seeing me, they're cutting their water 2 weeks before they're fighting, and their sparring sessions are horrible. Their training's going bad. They're really dehydrated. So they freak out, because, a few days before they're like, hey, I should be already on weight. I'm like, just trust the process, and eventually the weight comes off. So I think it depends on the athlete. So that's why every training camp is a way that I'm learning more about their body, how their bodies are responding to our strategies. And, I'm getting feedback from them. If they're like, coach, like, I think I need less water because, like, I'm okay, I'm not feeling dehydrated. Well, maybe we can tweak it a little bit. So again, same thing with the head boxing coach. It's like, hey, do you see anything that we can improve on this past training camp? Is there anything you want to tweak? So I'm always open to that. But I have a strategy where, like the last week, we're cutting carbohydrates, but we're maintaining our protein, try to keep that lean muscle tissue. And then the last 2 or 3 days, we're cutting the sodium. We're not doing it too early, because there's a bounce back effect where a lot of guys cut out their salt a week before, and then they have trouble getting that last few half pound of water off their weight. But it's because you cut your sodium too fast, and your body basically adjusted to it, and now it doesn't want to get rid of water. And then we get to the weight, and then there's a rehydration. That's another aspect where a lot of guys, I don't think they take too serious, where they just drink water after they get off the scale. But there's a process to not just getting water and fluids, but getting sodium, potassium, and then getting carbohydrates back in. So it's like, why would you do 8 weeks of work suffer for this last week and then not take your rehydration process extremely serious, because that to me is probably one of the most important parts. Is that's a day out where you're going to step in the ring. You need to gain that weight back. You need to put the proper fuel and be ready to show that your training camp was successful and it's time to fight, right?
I think, a lot of times in boxing, this is unique, right? Because with other sports, you don't really have to worry about this. With the exception of boxing and MMA, falling within a very specific weight category. If you're training for baseball, you don't necessarily have to be a specific weight, right? But the thing that's interesting is a lot of it has to be lack of education, right? And people just being told to do what they've been told to do for years and years and years. So I would say that people get on the scale, they don't always necessarily know the right way to rehydrate, right? Like as an athlete, as a boxing athlete, you just walked into a local gym, you're at your first pro fight, you don't know the right way to rehydrate or probably the right way to cut weight. Except for some, whatever the archaic system was for cutting weight back in the day, which was, eat half your dinner and then don't put anything else in your mouth until the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think some of it is people like you getting the opportunity to educate sort of the boxing community about what the right way is to do this and to share those thoughts, because really the examples, and we mentioned this before the podcast, like when we think of strength and conditioning in the boxing community, you think of Alex Ariza, right? Which is like, that's where everybody's head goes. It's really the biggest example as a boxing fan that you've had of strength and conditioning. And it's like this individual who was cancerous to the camp that he was in. Or you think of people who, or it was Alex Ariza even, who had supplements that caused positive tests things like that. So how do you do you feel like there's a reputation, at least with boxers, for strength and conditioning coaches, and how do you go about making sure that you don't fall into that camp,
Yeah, and I always hate to go back to it, but it's just earning the trust of the team, earning the trust of the team, and it's demonstrating that, hey, it's not an ego thing. My goal is not to be the man in this training camp. I'm a small piece of the puzzle, and this is how we can help. And if everyone kind of works together, and again, we leave the egos aside, and that means everyone on the team, then that's going to be, if everyone knows, hey, this is my role and everything is for the actual athlete and the fighter, then things work out smoothly. But as soon as someone starts to get an ego and wants to kind of get out of their lane and do a little bit more and have a little bit more ownership in different parts of the program, that's where people start, butting heads. And to me, it's like, there's a perception that a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, especially in boxing, is just get on these battle ropes and go until you puke, right? Go run these hills. And I'm not saying there's not merit to some of that stuff.
Some of it,
right?
Yeah.
Like Coach said, is these athletes, they have to feel what it feels like to be on that last. That where their tank is about to be empty and they still got to fight, right? So it's like, I'm not naive to think that they're going to come in and every workout's going to be easy. There's times where I do have to push these guys, especially like on Saturdays we do our conditioning sessions, and these guys they're working, but I know because Sunday they get to recuperate, they get to recover, so I know I can push them a little harder on that Saturday session rather than on a Monday or on a Tuesday, and then they come in on Wednesday, they're sparring, they're beat up, right? So I think changing that perception is working with athletes. Hopefully they're letting their other athletes and coaches know, hey, this, come. And I've gotten a lot of our new fighters from just referrals from fighters like, hey, I know you had trouble making weight last time. Come check out my strength and conditioning coach. Go talk to him. But also getting out there and doing stuff like this, where it's like, hey, I'm not the guy that just goes in the gym, this meathead who just the goal is to just puke, right? It's getting across that there's a systematic way and there's a process to every program that I put together, and getting out there and getting exposure to, hey, there's a better way, right? Or there's at least another way to do it. It doesn't mean it's always better, because there's sometimes where you can have all the science in the world, but you can still mess up, right? If you're doing the same program for this athlete that worked for you, and then you put this other athlete on the same program, he might respond to it differently, and now you're taking away for what he really needs because you had success in the past with this athlete.
It's not cookie cutter. I mean, you can't give the same program to every.
Sure. Yeah.
Every athlete comes in.
Even as a traditional coach, right? You can't give the same program to everybody. Everybody's sort of got different stylistically.
And there's kids that have trained 6 months and they get their first fight and they're winning fights like crazy. And then there's people who have trained for over a year and still can't figure out how to move their head. So everybody's different. Everybody process it.
I mean,
process is different.
And to be fair, I would say that some of the distrust doesn't necessarily come from what you do. It's more that I think, and Coach, you may have a stronger opinion on this, but within the boxing community, poaching is kind of a real threat, is it not?
It's a huge threat. I mean,
like there's always coaches trying to take away, like if you get a little bit of success, right? Always coaches trying to take away that fighter.
It's crazy because a boxer, you can make a boxer really good and make him great. He's winning lots of fights, and then somebody comes along and says, "Man, you're really good, but you know what? You know what? I can make you better."
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, fuck, get out of here, man.
It's like, it's a real thing. Like it happens enough that distrust comes from that.
Well,
you know.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, the athletes, a lot of times they're young. You know, they're impressionable. You know, there's what do you call it, lecherous people in the sport where they just dangle shiny things in front of them, and they have more resources maybe than the coach, or the coach is busy with other fighters, and then next thing you know, your best guy is gone.
Yep.
You know, so I think that's what I said. It's a territorial thing as far as the coach. You want to protect your fighter, and then you build up a close relationship, and then when the guy goes, it's like, what the hell? I thought we were cool, man. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, so that brings up. I wanted to mention that brings up a funny story. I was at a Triple G press workout one time, and Abel was there. So I was talking to Abel, and I asked him, "Hey, you know, do you think I can hang around you guys and maybe just, you know, I'm a coach. I'd love to learn from you. I just want to shadow you for a little bit and just learn some of the things that you know. Maybe I could be your apprentice or something." This was a long time ago, and then he says, "What, you want to be Alex Ariza?" He's like, "Hell no." He's like, "F that guy. I don't want nobody around here." He's like, "I don't want nobody in my camp." I was like, "No." I was like, "I just want to learn, you know, some of the old school stuff that you know." He's like, "No, ever since Alex Ariza, I don't let nobody in." And I was like, "Holy crap. All right, man. Well, no thanks." You know, so, you know, that I think, you know, let's just say strength and conditioning coaches have the best intentions. All right. You know, because if they're in that industry, they're in there to improve the physical performance, and along with the physical performance is the mental performance of the athlete. And let's not let that guy Ariza kind of ruin it for everybody, because, you know, he had a big personality, and he just put a big stain on that position, I think. But for the most part, from what I've seen, is they really do enhance the performance, and they really do. It just improves the performance of the athlete overall, you know, and they know the best way to do it naturally, you know, with good nutrition, good supplements.
Well, let me ask you guys something then, because in today's world, there are sort of specialists in each of these individual areas. So you could have a boxing coach, you can also have a nutritionist, you could have a strength and conditioning coach. There are sports psychologists who focus on other aspects of it. Recovery. There are even fighters today who use multiple boxing coaches to get, you know, multiple perspectives on what their performance should be, or performing analysis. Is there a too much? Is there just a too many hands in the bag?
Yeah, I think so. At some point, yeah.
Yeah, for you, there's.
Yeah, I think so. There's got to be. I mean, too many voices in somebody's head isn't a good thing, you know. So you got to keep your team small, somewhat intimate, you know. Just if it's too much, maybe for the strength and conditioning coach to kind of work on the mental aspect. But I think overall, as a collective, you know, you all work on the mental aspect together. You all have to have the same mindset together. I mean, if you're bringing in a psychologist, a hypnotist, I mean, every now and then you got to try some of this stuff, you know. So it's okay, but I mean, you don't want to have like a full-time psychologist. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but every now and then, I don't see anything wrong with it. But yeah, I mean, you could always have too many people, you know.
And I agree 100%. I think you need someone that's at the top, right? You need a CEO who's dictating, hey, this is the goal. Because it's like if my athlete has two boxing coaches, one guy might be telling me, hey, I need him to be more fit, right? More aerobically fit. This guy's like, hey, I need him working on his footwork or his reaction time or his power. Now I'm getting it from two, and I don't know who. And then, you know, I'm at the end of the day, it's about the fighter, and I'm taking away time that they're paying me for, because I'm trying to do everything, and I wouldn't be doing my job because I don't have no direction, right? So I agree 100%. It's like, yeah, you can have all these other kind of discipline areas and to enhance the fighter, but there has to be someone as the leader, someone that from the top down is given, all right, this is delegating, hey, this is your role, and that's where you make a great team, where there's vision, there's focus towards the end goal, in which whatever the head boxing coach is dictating.
I got a question with the education that you have, with the experience that you have, as far as training an athlete and seeing them grow, get stronger, get faster. Do you ever have a suspicion when you're looking at other athletes that maybe that guy's doing it, he's cheating, he's on peds?
To be honest, like, it's so hard. And again, it comes down to, like, I might be naive, but I always give the athlete the benefit of the doubt, because I know I've seen and I've worked with athletes who just have amazing genetics. And I know you guys know Ruben Villa.
Yeah.
Ruben Villa, right? So I used to work with him when he first started, and like, that guy, if we would do pull-ups and chin-ups, even for not even that many, like, his back would just grow. Like, he just is just like, oh, like, I need to stop doing as many reps, or maybe choose a different exercise. So there's some guys that just, and girls that just have great genetics, that they're gonna put on muscle. Like, and my at Cal State Fullerton, one of my mentor / former professors, Andy Galpin, he does a ton of research, literally taking out muscle cells. He's done some work with Conor McGregor. I mean, big names, and he knows, and from the studies that he's published, that some humans are just made differently. Their muscles are just different than your average. Yeah, they're fast. They fire faster. They're stronger. They're more resilient. They're just made differently. So it's like, there's some genetic freaks, but at the same time, it's yeah, and
we got lucky, coach.
We got lucky, huh?
and going off the kind of the supplement thing, that's another dangerous area, and I know a lot of times people want to, and I'm a firm believer that you need to take ownership, whether you knew you took something or you didn't. It's your fault. However, I'm here to tell you, like, I know the supplement industry, and there's a lot of, because it's not regulated, there's a lot of things that go on that honestly people just really don't know. And I just made a video not too long ago on my YouTube channel talking about what are some things that you have to look for on every supplement label, because there's third party companies that basically, and these are companies that are extremely expensive to put this little label on your supplement that ensures it's third party, so they're not related to the company. They randomly test, so they'll go into to NutriShop and pull an item off of randomly, go back to their lab, test it, and they're testing for if it has any type of like PEDs. Does it have the amount of protein that the label claims? Does it have the correct amount of dosages, everything? And they do that literally every 6 months, a year, random sampling, and it's extremely expensive on the company. So if these companies have these little logos, there's a few of them out there, more than likely this is the supplement you want to take. However, they're a little bit more expensive, but fighters don't know this stuff. They just, they're getting supplements because they get them for free, and companies are sending them, and you could literally end your career because you took something that you didn't do your diligence. And that's where I tell my guys, look, if you're putting anything in your body, because it's a reflection of me too. If one of my guys gets popped, it's a reflection on me, because it's like, you're their strength coach. Like, now I'm going to
everyone will think that you.
Yeah, everybody points the finger at you.
It's a reputation thing where I'm
right.
like, you know what? Like, we're going to do it. You're going to buy supplements that are tested, that are validated, and these are the ones you're going to take, right? And the thing is, it's so simple now. Like, these companies have websites that you can scan their barcode, and you can see when was it last tested? What does it say? Did it pass the results? Did it fail? It's just, again, marketing, right? People will send you free stuff, take my stuff, and there it is. You're taking a chance.
I think that's one of the challenges that you face in your position, because that's what's staining the sport right now. Is PEDs. And then you have some instances where, like, I think his last name is Conti, right? He owns that he owns that supplement company, and he was popped for giving performance enhancing drugs, and now he owns a supplement company. And I think somebody that kind of apprenticed under him, it's that guy from Mexico. He's a strength and conditioning coach. I think he worked with Marquez. Yeah. Right? So he actually worked for Connie for a while. And, just it looks suspicious, and then if something does go wrong, the first thing they're going to do is point to the strength and conditioning coach. You know, as you're saying, as far as the supplements being tainted. That's what happened with John Jones in his last fight, or I think that's what happened with him. And his excuse was that I was taking a supplement, and you know it was tainted with some stuff. So there's a big responsibility you got there.
No, it is, but at the same time, it's like
controversial.
It's kind of like it baffles me where you wouldn't want to like know this stuff. Like you're working so hard building up your career that your reputation is kind of how you're getting your paycheck. If if you want to align yourself with other companies that are gonna you're gonna do some promotion with, like, they want someone that has a good reputation, and it could not even have been your fault, but you didn't do your diligence and do the surround yourself with the right people. Go and find the education. The thing is, nowadays, like talking about old school, like, technology, internet wasn't around back then, right? You're taking whatever you take. There's no way to but now it's like there are too many resources that athletes and teams and coaches should not. They shouldn't be taken advantage of, right? There's just, like I said, these companies, you can go on their website and just scan the barcode, and they'll tell you, has it been tested? Did it pass or fail? You can even look at it from the batch number. That's how like crazy they get. And like I said, it's expensive for these companies. So if you have a smaller supplement company, brand new, they're not going to pay $20,000 every time to test their supplements. Who knows? How do you know that their facility is not manufacturing other stuff that might be banned, right?
Yeah. Would you allow your fighter to eat tacos in Mexico?
Oh, that's harsh.
That's up to the boxing coach.
That's harsh. So what's going on? Willie McGinley has joined us, and Coach Angela says hi. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
What's going on? Congratulations on the amateur wins, Willie. But so something that you mentioned before, as it comes to like PEDs and supplements and all this different stuff, it takes me to Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury served a 2-year suspension for PEDs. He tested positive for an anabolic steroid that he claimed came from eating testicles from wild boar, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Was he on Fear Factor or what?
No. Apparently it's in his community, not uncommon.
Oh wow.
But so anyways, he's been on this comeback trail, right? Tyson Fury now has had 2 fights since his return after a 2-year suspension. He's now preparing for a WBC championship match against Deontay Wilder. In that time, in a relatively short period of time, he's had to lose. He has lost, I should say, 120 pounds. Yeah. So he sort of ballooned up, as they say, between fights. So he had to lose 120 pounds and gain the appropriate level of conditioning to be able to box in the style that he's accustomed to, which is a very sort of maneuverable big man, right? So he gets around the ring quite a bit using his feet and using his jab. So thinking of that is like Coach and I have talked about weight cuts that big before, and the example that we always talk about is Roy Jones Jr. So Roy Jones Jr. went up to heavyweight and then 6 months later came back down to challenge at light heavyweight, and you could see it impacted his performance. Tyson Fury hasn't seemed to impacted his performance, and is there a right way to lose that much weight in that short period of time? Like, is it healthy, or are there things that?
But there's a difference, because Roy Jones was muscle loss.
Roy Jones was muscle loss,
and then Tyson Fury's all fat. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it was crazy because when I was working with Peter Petrov last year, and we went out to the UK, and that's when he fought for the world title against Flanagan, and Tyson Fury I got to meet him, and he was big. He was a big, giant, right? He was just in this regular t-shirt, like flannel type t-shirt, and just massive, and to see him now, I mean, it just looks totally different. So you're spot on as far as how much weight he lost. Like it's from looking from the outside in, it's tough to say, because it's like, if he's feeling good, I mean, there's some objective measures that you can test, see how he's recovering. You can talk to him, but he seems like he's in good spirits. But you'll know if someone cuts that much weight. You can tell by just their body language, how are they getting enough sleep, because it literally could affect your hormones, your immune system. It affects the entire body, so you can kind of tell if that dramatic weight loss is affecting. If he's able to spar and train hard, he might be feeling good. Maybe that was how Coach said, mainly fat, and there's a good chance he lost some muscle, but majority of it was body fat. He was big. And so if he's feeling good, maybe, and more than likely, hopefully he did it the right way. He hired professionals to, get him meal prep in. He was doing his cardio and his training. And
he wasn't eating boar.
So
cut that out of his diet.
I think it's more of you gotta, as a team, you gotta see how he's reacting to it. And maybe that's why they waited, X amount of time, because they didn't feel he was ready. And it seems like now, he won the past 2 fights, and he's gonna go after Wilder. So a lot of it's just how is he feeling, and on a day-to-day basis, if he's able to train hard, then maybe he's feeling good.
I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
Can having that much weight as far as fat for Tyson Fury, can that contribute to having to training better as he's trying to get in shape, because it's so much fat, and fat is like stored energy, right? Yeah. So he uses that as he's training. He's burning it up. I mean, he had a lot to burn up.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there might be something to it, but I would say it's anytime you have heavy body fat on your body. I mean, you got to think about it more from your knees, your ankles, your hips, your joints. How much weight you got to carry, especially if you're doing road work. You're in the gym. As far as the energy wise, I mean, you're going to get a lot of the actual energy within your training through your food, right? So if you're having carbohydrates, you intake that, in the morning, you have oatmeal or whatever. By the time you get to the, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., that's your fuel. You can use that. The body fat is more like if you're stuck on an island and there's no food, then that's where your body's going to tap into body fat to use as fuel to just survive, right? But that's why a lot of people that are just obese in general, like, you can't make that argument where you're just like, yeah, that's kind of healthy. Like, excess body fat is extremely unhealthy, especially for a heavyweight who has to carry that weight. Yeah.
Well, is there a correlation between, say, boxers, like body type, how much body fat they have, or how much muscle fat, or just muscle mass that they have? Is there a correlation with that and their endurance? Because extreme muscle mass requires more oxygen, right? Yep. And then you have these fighters like Chavez that's not built. You have a lot of fighters that they just look like your average everyday guy, but they're going 12 rounds. They're just beating the crap out of you. Well, and then you have other guys that are just like ripped, but then they get tired faster. So, I mean, what's like the correlation with that? I mean,
just to add on to that, like an example is you look at Anthony Joshua, right? And people look at him and say he has too much muscle for boxing. Mm-hmm. That's like a statement that people make about Anthony. He has too much muscle for boxing. It will be too difficult for him to recover from adversity. Is there truth in that statement? Is there too much muscle for boxing?
So like Coach said, is muscle is extremely active tissue. It requires that you either lose it or you use it or it dies, and it needs energy. So 100% right. And I think Joshua, I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters, but I think he actually slimmed down from the Klitschko fight from his last fight, correct? Do you know if he came in?
I don't remember.
I could have sworn I heard one of he lost like 15 pounds or something like that. So he came in a little lighter. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's it's how you're training and how the athlete's performing. So I would say as a boxing coach, that's where you need to make that decision where it's like, hey, he's looking slow. How are his sparring days? Is he able to hang? If not, maybe the right decision is we need to strip away weight, even if it's coming from muscle. So you might lose a little bit of muscle, maybe a tad bit of power, but I think power is much more than just how much muscle you have. It's technical, timing, precision. Can you use your hips right? So there's people that, like a Mikey Garcia, you look at him, he's not shredded, but that guy can hit, right? And so looks can be deceiving, but yeah, it's their performance is going to dictate where their weight should be. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what makes what gives Tyson Fury a little bit of an advantage. That he's not so muscular, so he can be a little bit more fluid and maybe nimble. Yeah, more nimble, and then also have that endurance where the muscles aren't really zapping him of the oxygen.
So we were having this conversation about fat and muscle, and it brought me to something that I want to share with you. So if you guys haven't seen this, there's a video of me taking body shots from Joseph Landeros, who is a professional fighter at 118 pounds. He's 14-0 with 14 KOs, and this was a week before his 14th KO. And he came in his Sunday best, and he really put it on me, okay? Now, the reason I bring it up is because of this. There's a comment on that video that I kind of want to share with you. You know what comment I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So anyways, he really rips me. I'll add it to the description of this, and it hurts. Okay, so he goes down, and I think it's about a minute and a half or 2 minutes of him ripping body shots, and he starts to build up steam and really put it on me. But there's a comment down here where it says, this is the reason that a trainer has to be bigger and fat to absorb body shots so that someone doesn't get hurt. Warning, don't do this at home. What do you guys think? Is there any truth to that? Am I not fat enough to take body shots on the pad, or like what?
You know, I think they're still going to hurt if you're fat. They're still going to hurt.
That's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but
the shots hurt if you're fat, or what?
It probably does help to have some extra padding, though, to be honest with you.
I probably should have had another pad on under this one, but yeah, come on. You don't have to be fat to be a trainer, right?
No, it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement? Okay.
It's more of a personal preference if you want to be fat.
Oh, man. I'm going to take it down because it hurts just looking at it. Oh, my goodness.
I think it looks cooler if you're a fat trainer.
It looks cooler
It's
if
more
you're
old
fat?
school.
Is that the... okay.
It's like the guy from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. You remember?
You know, I had this idea today, so I'm totally going to go off topic here, but you could tell me if you would participate in this. I had this idea today that we should hook up. I have that NES Classic I got like for Christmas or whatever, and that every guest who comes on, we should have them see how well they do against Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
You remember the code?
And then we'll just have a leaderboard of who can get the most points on Mike Tyson.
Well, that's a good idea.
You want to do it?
Heck yeah.
I'm down for that. That's awesome.
That's
We'll
perfect.
do it. We'll record you. We'll do the side by side so we can see you and Mike Tyson at the same time.
How many people can we get to beat him? I mean, that's
No way. Nobody
yeah,
could
you can't beat Mike Tyson.
a few people.
yeah,
You gotta have some type of code.
the people who come here have like real,
Well, I know
has
some
true responsibilities at a job. There's no way he spends
I
enough
know
time beating Mike Tyson.
Some 10-year-olds have figured it out, But there's a sequence.
Yeah, but they can do it all day long.
Yeah,
They can just do
that's
it all day
That's a
long.
really good idea. I've got a question. Mikey Garcia is talking about moving up in weight to fight Errol Spence. And when he fought Lipinets, I thought he looked kind of soft in the body. And as you mentioned, Mikey's not ripped, right? He's not he's just average looking body type. What do you see as the challenge for him moving up in weight and dealing with somebody that's naturally stronger, and how is he going to deal with it? What's the best way for him to go about it? Is it so he can perform at his best?
And one of the things, just to add on to that, I think when you and I spoke, I was curious, what do you need to do? How do you need to change your camp in order to accommodate this type of change?
Yeah, and I watched after his last fight. They right away at the press conference, one of the reporters asked, like, "Hey, we know you don't really use a strength and conditioning coach per se. Like, are you going to need to hire one?" And he was like, you know what? That's something that we're going to consider, right? So I think he knows that if you're going to go up to 147 and go against Spence, like, you're going to have to put on more strength, more power to be able to withstand the blows, not only to withstand it, but actually deliver more stronger punches, because Spence he's a big guy, and he's going to be able to eat a lot of the shots. So as far as the training goes, I think he's probably going to have to incorporate more actual strength. He has the conditioning. He does a lot of the road work and stuff like that, but it's more of the strength and power. It's not, and it doesn't mean that he has to lift tons of weights. It just means he does have to add some muscle to his body, right? Some functional muscle where it's not just bodybuilding big biceps. It's like, hey, stronger shoulders, upper back, legs, glutes, hamstrings. Those are all the muscles that basically deliver a punch. So I think he's going to have to 2 to 3 days a week, like, incorporate some type of form of strength and power training. And then with the diet, he's probably going to have to, incorporate more calories to be able to keep some of that muscle. I'm not sure how much he walks around at, but it's like 47 to 35. That's 12 pounds that he's going to have to keep on his body, and it has to be muscle tissue. And like how we talked about earlier, it's active tissue, so you got to feed it or else it's going to drop. So I think it's incorporating more your traditional strength and power training within his program, and then supplements / nutrition, and get his body to where he feels strong. He feels like he has still the endurance, but he can hang at the 47. Yeah, because his technical aspect, he's one of my favorite fighters. I love watching him box.
Yeah.
But now it's like the weight's going to be a very important factor for him.
Yeah. So gaining that muscle mass, that could affect his endurance. However, if he has the proper nutrition, that could balance things out where he maintains his endurance throughout the.
Yeah, I think he should be able to put on the necessary muscle, and still keep his endurance. I don't think. I mean, if we're talking like 20 pounds,
because that's like one of the myths from boxing. That's a. I don't know if it's a boxing myth, but the trainers, trainer like me thinks that if he gets too bulky, he's gonna get tired faster. He's gonna be slower.
Slower is, I think, and I think that's different though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're saying is what Coach Jerry is saying is you could keep the endurance, right? But it could impact your speed ability, could it not?
It could, but again, that's where like the way I train my guys. When we talk, like what a lot of times people don't think, or they don't really know what speed and power is the ability to exert a really, really explosive movement, right? So it could be a jump, it could be, we have like a cable machine that we do some rotational stuff. So I think it's incorporating more of that within his training camp, more the actual speed and power, medicine balls, that type of stuff. But then maybe on a separate day, he's doing more, he's doing some lunges, he's doing some chin-ups, more chin-ups, upper back type stuff where he needs to put on some actual muscle. And again, we're talking, 5 pounds of muscle, 8 pounds. I don't think that's going to have that significant of a difference. If he's, if he puts it on his biceps, then if he's done tons of bicep curls, I don't think that's effective. But if he's putting a few muscles on his glutes, on his hamstrings, on his chest, his back, I think that's going to help him at that weight. And his work ethic, I mean, he's just, that's why I love watching. He has that blue collar mentality where he does his cardio, he's on point with his nutrition. Now it's a matter of maybe can we add some, like something like creatine, right? Creatine is a natural supplement where there's a big misconception about creatine that could help him put on some muscle, get him stronger, and then you can take that away towards the end of the camp, and it could strip off some of that body, the water weight, right? But stuff like that, protein shake 2 days a week or 2 times a day, maybe after his training, it's going to help him build a little bit of muscle. So, and again, you play it by ear. It's like, his boxing coach, Robert Garcia, you can be like, hey, where are we at? Does he look slower? Is he gassing enough? He is. Maybe we back off a little bit here and there, but he's got to put on some more muscle at that weight. Yeah.
Real quick, what do you think contributes to better endurance? Having stronger legs or focus more on cardiovascular?
So, and that's a phenomenal question. So there's 2 ways to look at that. There's what we call systemic endurance. Systemic endurance is how well your heart, your lungs, your capillaries, everything that carries blood to and from the muscle, that you get from, your traditional cardio. And then we have what we call local muscular endurance. So, how many punches can you throw without your delts and your biceps and your triceps getting tired? So there's 2 ways to train that. And like with my guys, we do both. They're doing their road work. You got to think of road work is very slower cadence, very continuous. You're not tapping into that explosiveness. Now, when they come with me, we're doing jumps. We're doing medicine ball type stuff. We're doing things with bands, cables, explosive type stuff. So now they're getting the systemic endurance, but then they're also getting some of that localized muscular endurance. So there's some guys that, a marathon runner, he's extremely in great shape. Put him on a bag. I guarantee he'll probably gas out here, right? He's not going to gas out here. He's going to gas out here. So you got to train both of those. So, and I know when they're doing their sparring, their bag work, they're getting a lot of that already. So it's like, why should I continue to do more of that when they're doing that already? So what they're not getting is that explosive, repetitive, throw a medicine ball as hard as you can 10 to 15 times, right? Take a rest or, do a row or something, or injury prevention stuff. So there's 2 ways to look about that is can you get the heart and the lung capacity, on point, and then can you get the actual muscles to be able to withstand, a flurry of punches and high output. Yeah. And there's 2 ways to train that. Yeah.
And boxing, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, boxing is distinct in the way that the athletes perform, where it's very up and down. There's a lot of ebb and flow as far as your energy exertion, right?
Intensity.
Yeah, you're throwing a combination, then you're dodging punches, then you're there's a little lull in the fight and you're moving around. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? Because as far as from a coaching perspective, I do 2 things. I either make them do long distance running or I make them do sprints. Mm-hmm. Now for me, the sprints help with like the short burst, the combination punching. And then the distance running is more for the longevity of the fight. Is that something, do you still incorporate that into your training?
Yeah, 100%. I think I used to think, honestly, like when I graduated after my master's, I used to think I had the mentality of like, do they need that much road work, right? That was my mentality, right? I'm like, I don't. But then as I started talking to coaches like you and being in the gym, I'm like, you know what? All that time on their feet is extremely important because essentially, you know, if they're not throwing, they're moving their feet. They're on their feet. So they need to experience. Now, does it mean they have to run 8 miles every other day? No, it means 3 to 4 miles. That's a good training program to work that aerobic and the capacity, right? But you're spot on. I mean, some days it's like, hey, go, like my guys, they do their road work, and then on Fridays or after sparring, they're actually at the track, they're doing their sprints. So, and you know, you can change it up. You can do 100-meter sprints where they're all out, and then they have a lot of recovery time. And usually I like to do like a 4-to-1. If they sprint for 10 seconds, they recover for 40 seconds. Other times they might hit a 400-meter run and then do like a 1-to-1 ratio. They run 400 meters. It takes them, I don't know, 2 minutes. They rest for 2, and they do it again, right? So there are different ways to work the interval type of conditioning. And I always recommend using a heart rate monitor because you don't know if there's nothing that's objective. There's no objective data. You're just basing it off of, was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. Well, how do we know? And there's times where I have my guys hooked up to heart rate monitors. They think they're going hard. I'm like, that number tells me you're not. There's more in the tank. And that's why when I go to their sparring sessions, I'm checking their heart rate. I have tons of data every sparring session that they're doing. And I can see, all right, and their sparring sessions are way harder than my training. Even though if I put them on my bike, they're going all out, I still can't get them as hard as they're going into that sparring session. So that's when I know, and I let them know, I'm like, hey, I know it hurts, but when you're doing your sparring, your heart rate's higher than some of the stuff that we're doing. So you got more in the tank, right? So it's letting them know, like, damn, it's hard, but I know I have that extra gear that if I'm in the ring, I know I can pull it out when I need it. Yeah, but even that's important. However, to me, the way I like to train the guys is not so much the output, not how hard they're working, but can they cover between rounds. So one thing that I would highly recommend doing is when you're doing these sprint sessions, the way I do with my guys, so they have a heart rate monitor. We'll get them on a bike or battle ropes, medicine ball, whatever. We'll get their heart rate going up to, you know, somewhere around 170, 180 beats per minute, which is relatively pretty high. And in the sparring sessions, they're getting up to like 185 to 200. So just kind of give you a little context. And then I'm more important, how well can they recover from that end of the end of the interval to the next one. And the way I like to look at it is I use like 130 beats per minute as my threshold. I always, when they get to 185, I'm like, stop. I start my stopwatch. And I want to know, can they, within 1 minute, get back down to 130? So that means when they hear that end of that round, they're walking to their stool. They're focused on breathing. They're focused on listening to their coach for instruction, but they're focused on breathing. So that way, when they walk off of that stool, if they know that within our training session, they're able to recover better, and that's a good way to track if they're getting better. If, you know, when I have a new athlete, if it takes them 2 minutes to get there, next, you know, few weeks, 130, then a minute, I know that I don't care how hard you're pushing, because you're doing that already in sparring, but now can you become aware of your recovery? Because if you're entering that next round at 130 and that guy is at 145, he's expending way more energy. His hands are probably going to drop, so he's not as recovered, even though he has more skill than you. Hands are dropped, you're going to take him down, right? So it's like that's one thing that I'm more recovered, or more emphasized. Not so much how hard you can get, is how fast can you recover. And my guys, they're literally they have the heart rate monitor on the TV, and they're looking at it. And they're literally, I'm just teaching them that way. When they're on the stool, they don't have to think about it. It becomes subconscious, where they can take instruction from their coach, and they already know, hey, I'm bringing my heart rate back down. I'm walking into this next round better recovered. You're not fully recovered, but you're better recovered than that guy across from you, right? Because he could care less. He's breathing, but he doesn't know why he's breathing. Does he breathe through his mouth, through his nose? Things like that. That's the thing that I like to show my guys. Like, you're going to have a huge advantage over if you're going 8 to 10 rounds over that guy. I don't care how hard he's working. You're better recovered between these two rounds, right? And if you're not focused on, you can listen to instruction better, right? If you're relaxed, now your coach is telling you, hey, this is da-da-da-da, and now you can pay attention rather than your heart rate's jumping up and down. Now you're relaxed, you're getting water, you're listening to instruction, you're much more confident walking into that next round. Yeah.
Man, you guys are getting the knowledge today. I
Yeah,
appreciate
I know,
it. Yeah,
right?
this is yeah. This is where it's at today.
There's a gold nuggets being
I know,
dropped
yeah,
over here for
exactly.
any boxer listening.
Yeah.
You know how to
sharing
train properly.
trade secrets here on Beat the
This
Count.
is what I love to do, man.
I know.
Honestly.
I could tell. It's
In my mind, I'm like formulating the perfect
I know,
fighter
yeah,
now.
exactly.
I'm like, all right, we can make a world champion now.
Okay. Well, speaking of world champions, should we talk about the fights that happened this week?
Sure, I didn't watch any, but go for it.
It's
I know
all right.
you
Coach
watched them.
Jerry did. Coach Jerry and I
Yeah,
watched
you
them.
guys talked
You
about
saw the highlights, right?
I saw, yeah.
You saw the highlights.
Damn, ESPN and their
Yeah,
multi-app
ESPN.
platform.
Coach is really upset with ESPN.
They can't figure. I'm not smart enough to figure out their
It's
system.
not. It's just inconvenient. I'll admit that it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you watch the undercard, which I believe it was on ESPN Plus, and then you had to switch in the app to a different program to watch the main card, which was
Yeah, that's where I got lost.
so you got lost. So you missed the main card, but watched the
Yeah.
undercard.
I got all wound up and then nothing.
Well, you missed a heartbreaker, I'll say. Or at least it was for Ray Beltran, who in his homecoming fight, his first title defense, he of the light. Yeah.
He's definitely a fan
Unfortunately.
favorite and very likable, because he's faced adversity. So I can see that being a heartbreak.
It was, and I think the fashion in which he lost, it was a very competitive fight that I think was coming down to the wire. And in the final rounds, my opinion is he gave around 11 and 12, right? Well, I think both those rounds he lost, and
He got dropped in the 11th, right?
The biggest distinction being as he was coming on in the 11th to really take control of the championship rounds, which he was winning, in my opinion, up to that point. He took an uppercut and was dropped, and he did not recover. He ended up losing round 12. In fact, I would argue that at the end of round 12, he was close to being stopped, regardless of the fact that there was about 15 seconds left in the fight. And ultimately, he lost a decision to Jose Pedraza, who is now signed to fight Vasily Lomachenko. So the winner of that fight, not only do they get to walk away with the belt, but it was already a signed contract with Lomachenko and a 7-figure payday.
Well, that makes
Guaranteed
a better
seven-figure
fight
payday.
though, because I think Beltran, he's not to take anything away from him, but I don't think he would have stood a chance with Lomachenko as far as the foot speed, the angles, combinations.
Yeah, but he misses out on this. Is part of the from a psychology standpoint. It wasn't just a normal title fight. So I mean, you can always say that, like, when you're fighting for a title, or like if you're Deontay Wilder, you look at Tyson Fury and you think, I have to win because it's implied that after that I'll get a chance to fight Anthony Joshua, and that'll be a big payday. So in some respect, this happens all the time. Only the contract was signed. The winner of this fight gets a 7-figure payday against Vasily Lomachenko.
Yeah.
Right? So you're fighting for the title, but you're also fighting for an opportunity to unify the title and a guaranteed 7-figure payday.
Yeah, the most money you've ever made in your life.
Most money that you have ever made in your career and may ever make again.
Yep.
Right? So
that's worse than the actual loss.
in
opportunity.
In some respects, it seems that way, does it not?
Yeah, but you know what? I was watching the pre-fight interview with them, and they were already talking about that. And I kind of thought, man, focus on the fight, So I don't know if he got ahead of himself and didn't really, I'm sure he trained hard for that fight, but
I'm
part
sure
of
they
me,
both did.
Yeah, part of me was thinking, you always got to focus, because his answer wasn't, well, I'm focused on the guy in front of me right now. Who cares about what's next? No, they were talking about, fighting Lomachenko. So
and wasn't there was supposed to be a different fighter, right? Pedraza wasn't supposed to be the opponent,
Pedraza
right?
stepped in.
Yeah.
His mandatory.
What an opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Took advantage of
Yes,
that.
Pedraza was not his mandatory.
Yeah.
Pedraza is, and Pedraza was it was unsure if he had recovered from, because he had gotten knocked out by Tank Davis, right?
Yep.
And was moving up. So they're that was 2 fights ago.
that was his only
like
loss
that.
on his record, right?
Yeah, but and that was like 2 fights ago. But it's kind of like one of those things where we're not sure what he's even going to look like in this fight, and he actually did extremely well in the fight. But yeah, so he will move on to face Lomachenko.
How far into or before the fight even happened did the substitution happen?
I don't recall. Do you guys know? If you're online and you remember when Pedraza had to step into that fight, let me know, because I don't know how many weeks it was, but it wasn't like he didn't take it on 2 weeks' notice or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's been Pedraza for a while. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that affects the training camp and then the whole mentality of the fighter, and you got to change up your strategy. But and then he could be, as a substitution, he could be tougher than the original opponent.
It would seem to be the case.
Yeah. Because
unfortunately,
you've got your plan as far as the promotion company and as far as the manager, but you never know. There could be another plan in the works. So I mean, I do feel bad for Beltran.
Yeah. So, but look forward to seeing Pedraza fight Lomachenko.
Yeah.
Hopefully they decide to do that one at the Forum in Inglewood.
That'd be awesome.
Get a chance to go check that one out.
Yeah.
Because that's where he and Beltran were going to fight in August before he had the surgery, which is something that we actually didn't bring up. So Lomachenko obviously had the torn labrum in his shoulder, which put him out for only a few months, really, because he was intended to fight in August, and now it looks like he'll probably fight in December anyway. So he had a surgery on the labrum. Coming back into training camp for Lomachenko, how do you work around that kind of limitation? Because I imagine that there are things in his camp that they'll have to do differently as a result of the injured shoulder.
Yeah, and
can it fully recover? That's the other thing too. Can it be the same?
Nowadays, the surgeries are top notch, especially like someone like him. He's going to the best surgeon. And I read an article something about they quoted his physical therapist, like he's on schedule, everything's going good. So I think it just comes down to like kind of how we talked about earlier is he's a phenomenal athlete. He's in phenomenal shape. It's just a matter of from a physiological standpoint is getting his body right. And then with injuries, to me it's like it's a mental aspect. I think a lot of it, like let's just say something like an ACL injury, sometime or many times, you could be 100% recovered, right? The doctor's like, you're good to go. You're ready to go. Make your cuts. Be ready to go. However, the athlete mentally is like, yeah, I don't want to take that cut. Like, I want to pull back a little because I don't want to go through another 9-month rehab process. Yeah. So it's like, how does I think that's more, I think the surgery is going to be fine. And as long as he has plenty enough time to train and get his camp, cardio, all that, I think he'll be all right. But it's more the mental aspect is, and luckily it happened where he didn't have to actually stop the fight. So it's not like a devastating injury where it's like, if this happens again, your career's done. So I think it's just getting over the mental aspect of, like, you're good. Throw your punches. Like, do what you got to do, and your labrum's fine. So I think that's going to be more an issue than the physiological standpoint. As long as they have enough time to train, I think they'll be fine. Yeah. But I mean, rehab is, I'm sure he's doing some strength training and things like that. So essentially, when you get an injury like that, it's making sure, because you're going to have maybe some atrophy around the given injury. So you want to make sure the shoulders, the chest, upper back, everything gets built up, because you don't want too much of like a deviation from your left and your right side. But honestly, I think it's going to be more mental.
The labrum's a tendon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it was a tear, right? He probably just pulled off.
It was a torn labrum, yeah.
So it was a pull from wherever it was. I mean, that's the thing. I'm wondering. I mean, you're right. The mental aspect, is he going to feel like I can go 100% and exert 100% on that shoulder? I guess I would have to ask the guy who performed the surgery what change is in the tendon, because I tore my bicep and it's been 4 years and I won't throw it 100%, but I know that my tendon is shorter now. So I'm wondering if that tendon is shorter, because it makes the muscle it makes it tighter,
I'm sure it does, but I mean, I think speaking to the mental aspect of it, if social media is any indication, he was like on Instagram punching a nail into a wall with his bare hand.
Was he?
Yeah, you
Holy
guys
crap!
I didn't see that.
He had a nail that looked like it was 9 inches long, and he's holding it in his hand. It might have been it might have been the opposite hand, but now that I think about it, it's probably the opposite hand. But it's still impressive if you get a chance. If you get a chance to check it out. He takes it and sticks it in between his fingers. So he makes a fist holding the nail in his hand and sticks the point in between his fingers, and then he punches it into the wall, like all the way in.
Yeah, that's the old school Ukrainian training right there.
He does a lot of really unique training methodologies to keep him mentally strong. I will say that
Yeah, but among boxing athletes and boxers who are in incredible shape, he's a super athlete, so.
Yeah, I mean, he's in remarkable shape.
If anybody's going to recover, it should be him.
Yep. Of course, we talked about Isaac Dogboe, first round demolition.
I thought it was early stoppage.
It was first round.
Yeah, but the guy was still on his feet, though.
But he'd gone down twice already and then caught an uppercut and was shaking.
But he was complaining after the ref stopped it. He was like, what the hell, man?
Fighters always complain after the ref stops it. It doesn't.
Yeah,
a fighter could straight be clean out and then he'll get up on his stool and be like, why'd you stop it? Don't you think? Fighters always complain.
Yeah.
It's for their safety.
Even if they're knocked out, as soon as they recover, like 10 seconds later, they're like, why'd you stop it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I know the point that you bring up is one of my favorite fights and one of my favorite fighters of all time, Juan Manuel Marquez. In his fight against Manny Pacquiao, he was floored 3 times in the first round, but he came back, fought to a draw. In many people's opinion, one judge gave him 11 consecutive rounds after the 3 knockdowns. I think he won the fight against Pacquiao, where he was knocked down 3 times in the first round. So to some extent, I see the point, which is that, like, hey, the guy's not out of it entirely, and I've seen examples of it, but this is also not Juan Manuel Marquez, so I think.
Well, do you think, some fighters get a pass on that. They'll let them get knocked down a few times and then come back and then.
Well, I mean. Yeah,
but then Marquez was never.
You go down in every fight anyway.
But when Marquez goes down, he's never completely out of it, or
he's down in every fight.
He doesn't look like he's in a lot of trouble. He just, he gets dropped, he gets put on his butt, he gets back up.
Yeah.
But you never see his legs just completely out of it,
Yeah, it's not like the other day in the Jennings fight, which I did feel, even though that was the 3rd knockdown in that fight, I felt like the stoppage was premature. In this fight, I'm not sure. It's the first round, he was getting demolished. Like it was like the power was not comparable between the two. It was, this is extremely.
This is another segment we should have in the show, like People's Court. Early stoppage, or was it fair?
That's pretty kind
was it What's the theme song? Can we use that theme song? Dun, 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 dun.
That's funny.
Also on that card, Mikaela Mayer, who was in her first, it's hard to, I guess it's what you would call the televised card on ESPN. Now you can watch everything on the app, so you can go see the full undercard and stuff like that. So I've actually seen Mikaela Mayer on TV a number of times as a result, but it was the first time she was part of the main card. She was one of the 3 main bouts in her 7th, I believe, professional fight. So Los Angeles native Mikaela Mayer came away with a victory against a far, I guess, inferior opponent in terms of boxing skills. But she's looking to win titles, she says now. That's the next step.
Yeah, well, her career's got a plan, especially when she signed with Top Rank. I think she's their only female fighter, so they're definitely getting her to championship, and with the fan base, they're trying to build up her fan base. But regardless of that and her inferior opponents, she's still a beast. And I've seen improvement in every time she fights. I see her getting better and better and stronger. I think she's going to get a belt pretty soon. But she's the real deal, though.
No,
she's legit.
I agree. I don't. Yeah. To be fair, I also think that there's part of the development of a fighter that requires these kinds of steps. She clearly is technically sound in terms of boxing skills and ability. She's got it. Compare that to another fight, though. So here's one that we were talking about before the podcast. So on the untelevised undercard, the one that was on ESPN Plus, Robson Conceição, who is the gold medalist he's a Brazilian and was the gold medalist in the Olympics in Brazil, in his 9th professional fight. So he was 8-0, 5 KOs coming into the ring, facing Cantu. So Conceição had, they said, 105-15 amateur record and was an Olympic gold medalist. He was 8-0, 5 KOs coming into the ring.
How many amateur fights did he have?
405 wins, 15 losses.
Wow.
As an amateur is what they said on ESPN. That's what they reported on ESPN, including the Olympic gold medal, obviously. They put him in against Cantu, who I believe, I can confirm the record right now, but was 7-4. Okay.
It's not a bad record.
It's not a bad record, but he's also facing a man who has had, who's fought over 420 opponents in his lifetime, was an Olympic gold medalist, and already has a better record. He's already 8-0. What is the benefit of putting him in against someone who's 7-4? It's not like career development. I understand for young fighters where you see these guys, they're 17, they're 18 years old, and they fight guys who have losing records or who have winning records, but have still a fair amount of losses and things like that, because it's part of developing a fighter. I don't see what the development is. And when you watch the fight, it's the level of skill and ability is so, there's such a huge discrepancy, such a huge discrepancy that you're sitting there in the 8th round going, why don't they just stop it? Why doesn't his corner call it? It's like he's just getting massacred.
At that point, it's all promotionally based just to get the guy's name out there. And if the opponent can last a round or two, that's fine. The promoter is happy with he'll be fine with a first round knockout in 30 seconds, just as long along with a 4th round knockout. It's all just promotion. That's where it kind of gets a little sketchy sometimes with boxing, as far as in the early part of their careers, and then especially with televised fights or these fights that they're putting on the apps, they're not going to give you the best. They're not going to give you ranked fighters versus each other. That's just not going to happen until it's a main event, until they could sell more advertising and get more money out of it. It's just not going to happen. I mean, for me, I always say, for me, it's just one of those things that doesn't make the sport look good. I wish there was a better way. I wish there was a better way to do it, but that's the way it's done. And on the other hand, the managers and promoters, I see how that actually kind of provides a little bit of a service for the fan, because they're building up the fighters, they're building up their name, they're building up their notoriety. So there's two sides of that equation. I mean, sometimes you have a development fight where it develops the skills. Sometimes you have a development fight where it's developing the fan base.
Okay.
That's what that was.
Pushing the fan base. That's what that one was. Okay. And then
it's not
also
that fun to watch, though.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not fun to watch. Also this weekend, Coach, you said you did some work with Ruben Villa.
Yeah, early on. Yeah.
Early on,
yep.
Yeah. So Ruben Villa actually fought in Corona, on Saturday. So yesterday. Was it Saturday or Friday? I think it was Friday. It was Friday.
Thompson Banner.
Yeah, Thompson Banner. That was live streamed on their Facebook, and he improved his record to 13-0 with a pretty impressive performance. Congratulations to Ruben.
Yeah, and I worked with him, and I still communicate with him, and he's just a good kid. Again, he's one of those not atypical kid, but he's all in. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, he devotes his life to the sport. Like, he truly wants to be a world champion, and he had a great amateur career, and he has a good team. Like, he has a good team, and the people truly want what's best for him. And it's just an honor to kind of call him a friend and be able to work with him. And it was good to see him. I love watching. I mean, I know that this is far from, this might be saying something a little bit far stretched, but it's like he reminds me of like a Lomachenko, where his movement is just, he's smooth. I love watching his footwork, his angles, and I just look forward to him getting developed down the road.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think in this fight, this was actually a decision win. And I checked it out on the Thompson live stream, and he was using a lot of footwork. And Steve Kim and Berto Duran, who are the primary commentators. Thank you. Wow, that one escaped me. The commentators for Thompson Boxing were commenting a lot on not just his footwork, but also his head movement. The fact that when he throws punches, he makes sure that to move his head constantly. Yeah. So they're looking at him and saying, like, his head is never in the same place as when he throws the punch. Yeah. That was one of the comments that they made. Steve Kim also commented on that card, I should say, the inside track. So what he's been hearing is, and I don't know what this means, but I'll relay it to you because we've talked about it a little bit. What he's been hearing is that there is a good chance that Manny Pacquiao will be fighting for DAZN, Matchroom Boxing, and will face Amir Khan, assuming he has a victory in his fight upcoming in September. And that could take place as early as December of this year on DAZN. But we've talked about the future for Manny Pacquiao and what his opponents could look like. So according to Steve Kim, there's some likelihood that he's facing Amir Khan in the near future.
Manny's made some big money But now I'm thinking, man, he can make a lot more money still, you know?
Yeah.
He's still, I mean, his name still carries so much weight. And then there's a lot of people that he hasn't fought, especially some of these younger guys. And there's a great opportunity for Amir Khan because he's always asking for the big fights. He hardly ever gets to be the bigger guy in a fight. I don't think ever. Well, a few times, but yeah, that's a great opportunity for Amir Khan. And yeah, if Manny could fight the big names that he hasn't fought on his way out and just, you know, collect the money, I think that's great for him. It's great for the people in the Philippines because he's very generous, I know, with building houses and taking care of his people over there. So it sounds good to me.
Who do you like in that fight?
Amir Khan.
Really? By decision?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got youth on his side. He's equally as fast, if not faster. He's got decent footwork. If he gets caught, you know, that his chin has been suspect. But then we've also seen him been able to take punches. I think he could win a decision. I think, I think he'll win. I think he'll win.
I gotcha. I think it's interesting because the speed is something where hand speed. I don't know if you feel this way, Coach, but I look at it and it's actually really hard to gauge just watching tape of people, right?
Yeah.
And you look examples of like Floyd Mayweather, and he'll say things like everyone thinks they can deal with the hand speed until they get in the ring, and then they realize that they can't, right? And speed is one of those things that Amir Khan has touted about himself for an extremely long time, right? You know, going years back to when he was trying to make the Floyd Mayweather fight, or even when he was trying to make when he parted ways with Freddie Roach, you know, conceivably because he wanted to fight with Manny Pacquiao, who was also trained with Freddie Roach at that time, where he would say that, you know, I have the one thing that these guys have never faced, and that's someone who's faster than them.
Why do you think Floyd never fought him?
Well, that's a good question. Probably because, this is one of those touchy areas where people are going to say, like, he ducked Amir Khan, and I think that's... No, of course he didn't duck Amir Khan. He, like, went and fought Miguel Cotto instead. Who would you rather fight? like...
Yeah, but you know what's funny?
He fought Miguel Cotto at 154. Like, he's...
But Mayweather's all about the money, and, I mean, he never fought in the UK. He could have made a ton of money fighting Amir Khan and beating him in the UK. So it makes you think. I mean, and Floyd always takes smart fights. Not saying that his opponents weren't the best at the time. Yeah. You know, but that was. I think. I don't think he ducked him, but I don't think he was like, I'm going to fight Amir Khan. I mean, that's a challenging. The speed is challenging, definitely.
But I think it's something where he has always declared that, like, this is the one weapon that those guys aren't used to, is that I'm faster than them, and I'm excited to see the fight because you actually get to see if that's true or not. It's hard to tell looking at it. Is he really faster than Manny Pacquiao? Like, Manny Pacquiao has fast hands.
It could be a great fight. You know, if Pacquiao's phantom shoulder injury is like 100% recovered, you know, I think both those guys are really fast. You know, Manny's still got his footwork. He's always going to have power. Yeah. I think that's going to be a great fight.
I would love to see that fight.
Yeah, it'd be fun, right?
I've been following like Amir Khan's this past training camp. He looks good. He looks in. I can see when he first got to LA and to where he's at now, his body's changing. He looks in phenomenal shape. Yeah.
I agree. I think his last fight, obviously against a far lesser opponent than Manny Pacquiao, but he did show, because he's also got power. Amir Khan has power.
Yeah, I can see him dropping.
He dropped Maidana. He dropped. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's not. The only thing that's really suspect about Amir Khan, like you said, is the chin. Yeah. Right. And Amir Khan said something interesting in regards to the Canelo fight before his comeback a few months ago. He said that you could say whatever you want about the Canelo fight, for instance, but what happened was he got caught with a punch he didn't see coming, and that can happen in boxing. That's what he said. Yeah. He said, but up to that point, I was winning. And the one thing that you will always say about me is that I've never been outboxed by anyone. I've been knocked out, but I've always been winning, right? And I think that's a really interesting approach to sort of psychologically be able to sort of still declare yourself as the best.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
I think he's going to win. I feel he's always been somewhat underrated and been harshly critiqued by a lot of people in boxing. You know, fans that don't really study each fighter. I think he's got a good chance of I don't know if he'd win by knockout. I think he actually could really dominate Pacquiao, though, just strength and speed-wise. We'll see.
Speaking about strength and speed, we got a question for you from Arthur, Coach Jerry. It says, what are the most important skills as a strength and development coach?
So great question, Arthur. I think it depends on kind of a couple factors where I think as a performance coach is the primary kind of variable where I look at what separates a great from a good coach is just the ability to want to learn more, right? As opposed to having the mindset of this is what I've done in the past and this is what I'm going to continue to do, rather than reaching out and building a network of people around you who are willing to be open to sharing ideas. I mean, I don't want to be like egotistic, but like I live and breathe this stuff. Like this past Friday night, I stood in my gym till 1 a.m. just reading research. And it's just because it's like, I love doing this stuff. I'm fascinated by physiology, by how the human body works. So I think it's like, you got to be open to learning as a coach. You got to know what you know. Like if you want to be an expert, you better be well-rounded. You better not just know about strength. You better know about conditioning. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert at everything, because you can't be. You can't be an expert at nutrition, supplements, but you got to be really good at what you do, but you got to be knowledgeable in every other aspect, right? And then putting your ego aside and knowing that it's not about you, and being able to communicate with the team and demonstrating that, hey, this is what I can bring to the team. You got to put in your time, you got to put in your hours, because like Coach said, it's like to me, the more I get involved with the sport, I know it's a tight-knit community, and there's not a lot of outsiders that they get welcomed in. So you got to prove yourself that, hey, this is a sport that you want to advance. It's not just about you and making tons of money. It's about the love of the sport, the love of the fighters, because again, like I'm 32 and the guys that I'm working with, a lot of them are young, and it's just like, it's cool to see them being all in something. And like, as much passion that I love this sport, this career that I chosen, they have that same passion to their sport. So it's like, how can I not give it 100% in learning and continuing to go to clinics and reaching out to other coaches and helping these athletes develop, right? So I think those are like, and again, I said nothing about necessarily like getting tons more textbook knowledge, because that you have to know. If you want to be a great strength and conditioning coach, you have to know the textbook stuff. You have to know how to condition. That's just a given, but it's what separates a great from a good coach is all the other intangibles. Is don't be egotistic, to have the growth mindset, being able to communicate effectively, being able to donate your time to something that you're not going to make money off of. This is a sport where in the beginning it's you do it for the love of the sport, and down the road, yeah, maybe it's an investment where you're able to get paid off financially and you can live a good life, but it's like, you got to put in your time, just like these athletes are doing in the beginning. You're in the same boat. So I think it's a given to know the given subject area that you should be an expert in. That's a given, but it's all the other intangibles that separates a good from a great coach. And I'm around amazing coaches. Shout out to all the coaches that give me their trust to work with their athletes, because it's like, if not for them, I'm not getting these opportunities. So I never take that for granted. I'm extremely humble when it comes to making sure, like, I thank the people that allowed me these opportunities. And I think those are the things that separate a good from a great coach. And that could be a good from a great teacher. It could be a good from a great, whatever you want to call it. It's, you better know what you know. You have to know that stuff and be extremely well-rounded. And then you have to be able to do the other stuff, and that's all communication and those types of things.
I was going to say sound advice in all things, I think.
Yeah,
not specifically coaching, but generally speaking, continuous learning is really a key to excelling in any field in particular, including the sport of boxing or, of course, strength and conditioning. So.
But just one little thing to add to that is just you make sure there are some credentials out there that you want to look for when you're looking for a professional, right? There's a difference between a strength and conditioning coach and a personal trainer. Big difference. Big difference. A personal trainer, as you know, they're going to be certified, but they're certified to work with general population. They're not trained to develop a training program, to know, common injuries within the athletes. So you got to know, if you're a boxer out there or you're an MMA fighter, know who you're trusting your body with, because anyone can go and get a weekend certification, and that's with a lot of things, right? But again, you're literally all in with this career. Why wouldn't you want to hire a professional? I always use the quote, certified does not mean qualified, right? Look for someone that has experience. Like the certifications to become a strength and conditioning coach, you have to have a degree to sit for that exam. So I'm not saying that everyone that has that is qualified to work, but it's like, at least that's a minimum. Is they went to school, devoted 4 to 6 to 8 years of learning this stuff. That's a minimum if you're a professional athlete. After that, it's like, go meet with these coaches and talk to them. And my big thing, I always tell my athletes, everything that I do with you, I want you to question me. And it doesn't mean like you need to tell me why. It's just like, I should have a rationale and a why behind, we're doing a split squat, we're doing a medicine ball. If I'm just doing it randomly, you should fire me. But if you come up to me and be like, hey, coach, why am I taking this supplement? If I just say, just take it, that's not giving you.
Here, take this.
It's like, all right, well,
inject this.
Yeah, so I'm big on that. It's when I go to people that I trust with my body, my doctor, it's like, I'm going to question, why is this medication right for me? It's the same thing with the strength coach. Why are we doing this exercise? Why are you telling me I need to run this much? And if they can't give you a sound answer, you should find someone else.
Well, do you think it's a little trendy right now to be in the fitness industry and to be a personal trainer?
100%. Yeah. It's just because, social media and it's sadly, like, people like me I'm going to get drowned out by someone who might have,
ton of followers.
5% body fat.
Yeah.
And they
he looks good.
So that's where, but I'm saying,
point.
like, if you're a professional athlete, you need to surround yourself with the people that are qualified.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not naive to think I don't know everything, but I'm learning, and I'm trying to get involved with people that know more about me. I'm a firm believer. I surround myself with people that are smarter than me, because that's how you learn, right? And you can learn from your athlete, you can learn from coaches, you can learn from anyone, because they have experience and expertise in different fields that you don't, right? So those are the factors that really build a centered and grounded coach who's willing to help you get to that world championship title. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your taking the time to explain it to us, and I know that I made a time commitment. I don't want to keep you much longer, but before we go, there's one last topic in boxing that I think we do have to address. Yeah, F.A. Dogboe. So Curtis Harper. I'm sure everybody saw it.
Right.
FS1 on live TV. Curtis Harper walked out of the ring at the opening bell of his televised bout with PBC in a heavyweight bout. Over a contract dispute.
Just when you think you've seen it all in boxing.
Yeah. What's the Larry Merchant quote? The theater of the unknown, right? That's what he calls boxing. Well, in full gear, Curtis Harper. The bell sounded, and he left the ring. Just walked out, down the aisle, and back into the dressing room. Over a contract dispute. Did you watch the clip?
I seen it. That reminded me of the one time, I can't remember his name, but I think he was fighting Lennox Lewis, or he just started crying. He didn't want to fight anymore. So that
is equally peculiar.
Yeah, that reminded me of that. However, I read, I don't know the details. Obviously, he knows why he walked out, but I read that there was a contract dispute, or he had signed the contract, and then I think the day before the fight or the day of the fight, they told him, we're cutting your pay by 75%.
Wow.
For whatever reason, that could be, that could be just speculation. But I mean, if that's the truth, and I train for a certain amount of time and is expecting a certain amount of money, and then the day of the fight or before at the weigh-in, usually that's when the contracts are, finalized, is at the weigh-in. If my pay was cut 75%, I'd be pretty pissed. And then, I mean, if at that point he's kind of painted into a corner where I'm already here, I already made weight, they're going to pay me this, which is 75% less. You said, like, why wouldn't he have just walked away? Well, hey, he made it to the show. Might as well get something,
Yeah, well, my initial reaction was, why walk to the ring?
Yeah.
Why put on the show? He came all the way down to the ring. He did the referee's instructions. He did all that stuff. If your attempt was to hijack the bout, which is to say, like, no, I'm not going to fight unless you got... unless you guys pay me more money, then you don't do it by walking out of the ring. Once the bell sounds, you would do it before you went to the ring to say, like, no, you have to pay me more money or I'm not going to go to the ring.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in that instance, they could have got a last second opponent, and that happens all the time too. And he would have just been.
That's pretty last second.
I've seen.
That's like.
I've seen.
He's not gonna walk to the ring.
Yeah, I mean.
Is there any heavyweights in the crowd that want to challenge
I've seen
Dogboe tonight?
Maybe not on TV, but I've seen stuff like that.
I think my favorite part about all of this is that they PBC actually published this to their YouTube page right here. The fight highlights for FA.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Was it? It's like it's a minute, right?
Yeah, 1 minute. They posted 1 minute and 7 seconds. The fight highlights for that fight, along with all the other fights on the PBC card this weekend.
Wow.
So
well, that's infamous. I mean, that's like in the top 10 infamous now of boxing.
Yeah.
It's up. You know what? The crying thing with Lennox Lewis though.
Yeah.
That you're right. Although it is different, it's not the same as just walking out of the ring, but still extremely peculiar.
Yeah.
Well, before we take off, I do want to give you a chance. If there's an Instagram that you want to plug, of course, Titan Edge
I want to
Athletics.
ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask one more question.
Give it to me.
Go for it.
This is such a good coach to coach, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you train different for different sports, right? Athletes in different sports.
Yeah.
What sports are those?
Soccer, football, basketball, baseball. Did some MMA in the past. Everything.
Okay.
The only one maybe I haven't done, maybe like
Curling, right?
curling, cricket,
So there's
and rugby.
so each sport requires kind of a different set of exercises and a different like workout path for the athlete. Out of all the different athletes that you train, I could be wrong, but do you find that boxers are the most disciplined out of all those?
Discipline. Well, I mean, right now, because my athletes, I would say, yeah.
Not to take anything away from the baseball players.
No.
Players.
It's just I think it's different level when you're a high school or college athlete versus a professional athlete, right? It's a different mindset, and you have to be, because it's like you're giving away, and this is why I respect these boxers in general. Is you're giving away some of the best times of your life, right? From 18 to 25.
Yeah, no partying.
Yeah, and it's just like
drinking.
you
Even
have
younger,
to,
yeah.
and younger, you have to be all in this sport. And from a physiological standpoint, boxing by far is, in my opinion, even more so than MMA, is the hardest sport to train, because you need everything. You need cardio, strength, power, endurance. And so from a physiological standpoint, by far, I think boxing is the most difficult sport to train. But from like a personal perspective, hard work, yeah, these guys and girls, I mean, both males and females, and when I'm at the sparring gyms, and they're so zoned in. And I think it comes with the culture, right? It's like, as a boxing coach, you're not going to devote your time. A lot of coaches have full-time jobs. They're doing other things. You're not gonna, I hate to use the word waste, but in a sense, you're not gonna devote your time to someone who's not committed. And I'm the same way. It's like, if you're coming to me, and I've unfortunately I've had some meetings, and I'm just like, yeah, you're probably not right for me, because it's like, if I'm gonna give you 100% effort on my end, I expect that in return. That means you shouldn't be showing up late. If you need to cancel, like, we need to make up that session and things like that. So I would say it starts with what you value as a coach. And if those athletes are not aligned with that value, hey, you're a great person, but you're probably not the right fit for myself or for this team and things like that. So I think, shout outs to the coaches I work with, Danny Zamora, one of my other guys, but just the coaches that I've been around, is they know, hey, if you're going to work with us as a team, these are the expectations. If you don't meet these expectations, you're not going to be a part of this team. And that's where it starts. And I'm the same way. As I've turned down, whether it's personal training clients, I've turned down athletes where I'm just like, in a matter of 2 sessions, I know if you're worth the time that I'm going to invest. And if it's not, I'll turn down the money, because I know I can find someone else that I can help more effectively, because they're really all in. So I think it's and that's part of that meeting where I meet with the team in the beginning. It's like, where's your mindset? Like, why do you want to hire me, right? Is it just because you saw a video that I did, or is it because you truly want to devote, and commit to strength and conditioning and doing all this extra work? Because essentially it is extra work. It's more money that you're going to spend. And I can get a feel for someone if they're truly invested for the right reason. Is it just because their coach says we have to do it, or is it because you really want to get to that next level of training and have an edge over the people that you're going to be going into that ring with, right? So I think it starts with the mindset over everything, right? And I'm a firm believer, like, if you don't invest in whatever you're doing, there's no commitment. And I mean financially invested, time invested. Like when I have a business coach I own a gym, and I have a business coach. I pay this business coach good amount of money to keep me accountable. Like, he's not showing me these crazy marketing schemes. No, he's just, every week we get on a phone call. I told him I was going to do this, and if I don't do it, I'm paying him regardless. So it's like, it keeps me accountable, and I'm a firm believer. I talked with my athletes, like, yeah, it's not going to be free. You're going to pay, because if you don't show up, it's going to cost you, right? There has to be some type of consequence to your action or inaction in any part of your life, right? And I'm a firm believer of that. So it's like, it starts with that mindset. Are you the right person? I work too hard to get to where I'm at, that I'm not just I'm going to be very selective with who I work with. And I mean, I'm extremely fortunate to have the guys and girls that I've worked with who they just fit the culture that I'm looking for. And that's just not even athletes. That's like people in general, my friends, anyone that I'm connected with, they have to have the same mindset as me, or else, I mean, I've cut off some friends in the past, and it's just because, like, they're not doing much for my life. And sorry, but I'm going to be with people that are bringing me up rather than holding me where I'm at or bringing me down. Yeah. I'm a firm believer of that.
Good question, Coach.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, I know. Good
So
answers, too.
before, if we have like 2 minutes, one more thing.
Of course.
I'd like to ask Coach, like, what, in your opinion, how can a strength and conditioning coach come to you? What's the proper protocol maybe to approach you if they wanted to work with you or your athletes? What in your opinion, what's the right way to do it?
Well, first of all, I'd just say, hand me a business card and say what you do, and then say offer help. Basically, if there's any athletes I can help you with that you see are lacking in speed, strength, agility, anything like that, maybe I can help improve that, and just not pressure. I think a coach has a lot to think about already, whether he has one fighter or many fighters or a gym to run.
Yep.
They have a lot of things to think about. So just something that's not, I guess, approach with not too aggressively, and offer help. Everybody likes help. I think if you approach somebody and tell them this is what you need, nobody wants to hear what, nobody wants anybody telling them, oh, well, this is what you need. Really? Like, yes. I'm older than you, or I've been doing this longer than you, or whatever,
Yep.
But if you're saying, I want to help you, and I want to see your athletes win, I think I can help with that. I think that's a good approach.
Awesome.
But I'm open-minded about it, just because I played all the sports where there was always a strength and conditioning coach. I think that is hugely important in boxing, and boxing is one of those sports where there's always that struggle to be open-minded. All the promoters and managers, everybody does things the way they've been doing it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, even NASCAR drivers have like strength and conditioning coaches.
Yep.
But in boxing, it's like, oh no, stay away.
Taboo.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm open to it, and I'm like, I've already got a couple kids in my mind that I want to send over to you.
Awesome,
because
love that.
Because I really do believe if you want to get to that next level, if you want to separate yourself from the rest, you have to do something different. And in business, a lot of people say, well, you just throw shit up on the wall and see what sticks. And in coaching, especially in the beginning, it can be a little bit like that. And then once you find your formula, you stick with it. But I think part of that formula is having strength and conditioning. It's hugely important, and it does take away it takes away that pressure on the coach to be like, hey, are you running? Hey, are you doing this? Are you doing that?
And now you can focus on what you do best, right?
We can focus on the technique, and then I hand over the responsibility of the strength and conditioning to somebody who is qualified.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because how many times do you have people come in and tell you that they're running and doing their conditioning?
All the time, and they never do it.
Are you running? Yeah, I'm doing it.
If I don't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
That's how I'm like, well, they're like, oh, I just ran 4 miles today. Well, guess what? You're running again. I didn't see it, dude. So.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Coach. Appreciate those.
I love it, man. You guys are really hanging on today and digging in and letting everybody know what the important things are about boxing. I appreciate you guys taking the time to sort of provide the detailed explanations and let everybody know what they should be doing.
Well, boxing and sports in general, but boxing is a beautiful thing when it's done at a high level.
Yeah.
You know, and then you only get to that high level from having good coaches and being in the best shape.
You know what I think is kind of unique about boxing in that respect is that for some reason boxing and MMA, do you get the impression that people just feel like they can do it? Like I
had the conversation yesterday.
Oh, do you really? Like I don't feel like people look at professional basketball players. People don't look at professional basketball players and go, I could do that.
Well, maybe because they're not 6'8".
Okay,
you know?
but any sport, like you look at baseball, and people don't look at baseball and just assume like, yeah, I could play pro, but that's easy. But for some reason, I get the impression that people just feel like they can go and be boxers. I could go fight MMA. I'm a big guy, you know. Well, then I can hold my own. I can go fight boxing.
Well, then they join the gym. And they start hitting the bag, and then the first thing they do is they start jumping around all over the place because they think that's what they do. That's what's supposed to be done. But absolutely,
don't you feel like that?
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just me.
But
I feel like everybody thinks they could do it.
But real professionals make it look easy. Yeah, you know, that's the other thing too. So
yeah, I'm glad it's not just me because I do feel like
we had some sparring the other day, and I think we had about 8 to 10 sparring sessions, and there was a lot of people here watching, a lot of new students, a lot of parents, friends of some of the fighters were here, and then, you know, they all had the same look on their face when they were watching the sparring and after the sparring, and then I could see what they were thinking. I was like, you're thinking about trying it, huh? You think you can do that? It looked easy, huh? And they're like, oh, I don't know. So, but yeah, I mean, real professionals.
Everybody thinks they can do it.
Yeah, everybody thinks they can do it.
I don't know what that's
tough. It's one of the toughest sports, you know. And I think when you can play a lot of sports, you can be tired, but when you're in a fight and somebody's trying to hurt you and you're trying to hurt them and you're trying to avoid their punches while also punching effectively, you're thinking at a high level and then your body's working at a high level. Not too many people or athletes have been in that situation, you know.
Like the fight or flight situation, right?
And that's where you've got to be zoned in all the time, you know. You've got to be zoned in, and it's not a lot of people can do that. You like you said, fight or flight, you panic. Yep. If you can't control your breathing, you can't control your heart rate, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Yep. Sink or swim.
Yeah. There's also no, you know, like there's no timeouts. There's no bench time. Like if you're not doing well,
he hit me hard.
And if you're not doing well, coach can't just pull you from the game and be like, we're going to put someone else in your place. Over. Right, like that's it. You just get that one opportunity.
And some of my guys, they always talk about like it's a lonely sport. It's like, you know, people don't see the behind the scenes, right? You know, a lot of the guys that I work with, I talk to them like, hey man, like everyone sees you when your family comes from Texas. Everyone comes over and they see you for that one night. They think you're a superstar. But what they don't see are all the days that you're on your own
every single day
at the track. You're here, that you're suffering. Like and that's the perspective where a lot of fans and people that are not involved, like, and that's something I didn't know about, right? But it's like it's a lonely sport. Like it affects your relationships with, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, family, everything. And it's just like not everyone can. Very small percentage can do that, right? Mentally is. You're on your own. If you don't go run, like, you have a coach, but it's like it's only hurting you. Like your coach is hired by you, and it affects your performance. And that's where it's just like I have a lot of talks with the guys. I'm like, man, I have so much respect for what you guys do because I couldn't do that when I was 18, 19 years. There's no way. I'm busy doing other 15 stuff, right?
And 16 years old.
And that's where I have so much respect for these guys and girls. That honestly, this is the hardest sport to make a living at. You know, it's tough.
Yeah.
I agree. I was saying that the other day. Something like, of all the professional fighting population, what percentage do you think actually makes a living out of boxing? So there's people who get paid to box.
Floyd,
right? Yeah,
that's it.
There's people who get paid to box, but the number of people that actually make a living out of boxing, fighters in particular, not coaches and gym owners, but fighters in particular, it's got to be an astronomically low percentage.
Well, there's that perception that if you're a fighter, you're making all kinds of money. I mean, there's fighters that have extensive careers and they've never made a lot of money. I mean, when they fight, it's like a bonus. But you know, training takes a lot of time. You know, just to even be a mediocre fighter, you know? So there's a lot to appreciate about boxing. For sure.
I agree. Well, with that being said, Coach, is there anything you want to plug? Your Instagram, any fighters who have fights coming up, the gym, anything that you want to tell the people out there?
I mean, before I even do that, just thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here. This is an awesome gym. Definitely want to come back and get a workout in. But just thank you guys. I mean, things like this, these podcasts, these videos are all about just basically spreading information. You know, we're having fun, but at the same time, it's like when I go on these things, this is my opportunity to talk to athletes, coaches, and give. To me, I always look at, why did I spend 8 years, getting my master's degree and having all this information, not being able to give it away. And that's something that I love doing these things, because it's no point of me going to my deathbed with all this information, just holding on to it. Right? The whole goal is to pass on this information. So thank you guys. This is an awesome show. I loved being here. As far as kind of like the best way to kind of look at things, that what I'm doing is just by Instagram. I'm probably the most active there. It's Coach_Jerry_ and Jerry with a J. I post a lot of boxing related stuff, but then I also do a lot of like self-improvement, growth mindset, things that are just going to make you a better human being. I'm a firm believer of that. You can find me on my Facebook. Just look me up, Jerry Arias. If you ever want to come by my gym, I'm over in the city of Whittier. So right down from like Norwalk, Cerritos, that area. It's called Titan Edge Athletics. That's Titan_Edge_athletics on Instagram. So if you're an athlete, you're a boxer athlete, any type of sport athlete, and you're around the gym, come on by and we can meet, we can talk, we can discuss a training program. But that gym was made to specialize with athletes. We have all the tools, all the bells and whistles, but again, a lot of gyms have that, but we also have amazing coaches. It's not just me, but I have 2 other coaches, all have degrees. I have some intern coaches who are rock stars, but we've created a culture where you have to come in and you're going to work, you're going to have a good mindset, you're going to walk out of here as a better human being, right? And if you can be a better human being, that means you're going to be a better athlete, you're going to be a better coachable athlete, your coaches are going to have a better athlete to work with. So more than welcome to come on down, but I think Instagram is probably the easiest way to find me and the gym.
Cool.
Yeah.
Coach, anything from you?
Man, I have more questions, but no.
Hey, we got to do this again.
Yeah, we could do it
totally down for this.
We could do it again.
Yeah, I have more questions.
100%.
No, I just appreciate Jerry coming down. Just tell everybody, check it out, Titan Edge Athletics. If you're a boxing coach or if you're an athlete, get on it, man. If you want your guys to win, you want them to get the edge,
Yeah, of course.
You got to work hard. You got to add that extra flavor to your training. You can't just do the even though I think old school fighters are tougher mentally, maybe, but no, I mean it's a new time for boxing. You got guys like Mayweather and then Lomachenko who are totally changed the sport as far as their athleticism, what they can do in the ring, and
their dedication to training.
Yeah, they've raised the bar so high as far as the money that you can earn, what and how you can perform in the ring, that it's essential to have all these components in your training. I mean, there's, we look at like Tiger Woods, they gave him a golf club when he was, 5 years old.
Yeah.
And look what he became. And it's important. We live in a competitive society. So, get the edge, you know?
The Titan Edge.
There you go. Yeah, add it to your, repertoire.
I did it. Yeah. And then, of course, Beat the Count. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. These episodes, if you missed any and you want to get past episodes, you can get it on YouTube. Also on Spotify now, as well as nice. Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play Music. So be sure to like, subscribe, and if you guys have any topics or guests that you want to see in the future, you can message me on Facebook or hit me up on Instagram. All right? That's it.
That's it
for this week.
It's a good one.
Thanks, God. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Peace.